everyone, welcome to Coats and Jackets. This is Kimberly.
And this is Mandy.
And we're doing Wizarding World Book Club. Aren't you glad?
We're really behind, and it's pretty much all my fault.
No, well, I did get sick as well. You can kind of still hear it in my voice,
Yes.
so.
I've got a very busy, I won't say social life, because that doesn't exist.
No.
I've been busy, very busy with work and with a few things personally, but mostly work.
Yeah, and I've had a schedule change with work as well, so I'm working more hours now too. So it's been a struggle to find meeting times, but we're gonna get through it. So this is gonna be our final look at the Philosopher's Stone.
Yes. So the Philosopher's Stone really introduced us to Harry Potter's world, and I'm sad to see it go, but I know that it's leading to very exciting places.
Yeah. It's going to get very exciting from here on out. This is really, as you said, it's the introduction. So what we'll do is we'll start with some of the Twitter discussion questions. While we were gone, Pottermore held a live Wizarding World Book Club Twitter panel where they actually interviewed different YouTubers and personalities in a live discussion on Twitter. And I thought it would be really neat if we answered one of the questions from that, because they did ask some questions. It was for both the Philosopher's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets, so we'll do the Chamber of Secrets stuff later. But one of the questions they asked for Philosopher's Stone was, what do you think Hermione would see in the mirror?
Ooh, well, Hermione would be the head girl, obviously. I mean, she wants to be... she wants to be the best wizard witch.
She does, but I don't know if she'd want to be a prefect necessarily.
A prefect.
I think she'd want to get some kind of award for academia, for sure.
For sure.
Like, I think she'd want to get some kind of medal saying, you did the best ever on the Owls, or something to acknowledge it.
Like, she went to Wizard University and just, like, aced everything. She's got a PhD in, like, 4 different things.
Yeah. You would see her academic future.
I mean, I very much see Hermione being like, I feel like she could go on to the Ministry of Magic and be like...
Man, she could be the head of Ministry of Magic.
Exactly. It's like...
Like, no problem.
Cornelius Fudge, right?
Yeah.
She's coming for you. You want your job. So, I mean, that's what I feel like. Or, you know, possibly the other thing is that Hermione really wants friends as well. She feels very... She does feel kind of isolated. And isolated.
Another thing, she might want to see herself maybe as like a headmaster of Hogwarts someday. Or even some kind of like, I don't know what the equivalent will be in the Wizarding world, but like the type of professional that does the research for doctoring. Like, in the Wizarding world, because I know they have, like, the nurses and everything is Madame Pomfrey, and Madame Pomfrey is very knowledgeable and skilled. But I think she'd want to be the person out there maybe trying to discover the things and how to use them to, like, better make them work to help people. It seems like something Hermione would want.
Like a research position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could really see her as headmaster as well. I don't know, it's hard. I feel like she would see herself as a woman in a position of power.
Yeah, but in a good way.
In a good way.
In a beneficial, influence, help people kind of.
The academia thing, though, for sure, I could see her seeing herself as headmaster. For sure. Okay.
Okay, and then, of course, the final question from last time that I didn't tell you about. Because it really was going to launch us into this discussion. And it's, what, for you, was a standout moment in the Philosopher's Stone?
Oh, a standout moment. Like, in what sense of the word? Because it's such a...
It leaves it so open that I just went for something that just stuck in my mind as, like, just an odd little thing that I just, like, kind of enjoyed. It wasn't necessarily, like, a favorite moment, but, like, something that just kind of stood out to me, or at least that's how I took it, because they left it very open-ended.
So... It's hard to say, because Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was really... I mean, it's not the first in its genre. It's definitely not the last. But it had such a rich world that for me, I mean, instantly you're drawn into it.
Yeah, it's very well thought out.
just the way it's written, everything. I really liked everything about it. I mean, from the very instant that you meet Harry's aunt and uncle, and that you meet the cat, who turns out to be, you know, one of his professors. The cat reading the newspaper, I don't know. I would think that stands out in my mind the most, honestly. Maybe it's because I have a cat and I think he's smarter than he lets on. There was just something about that imagery, I think, that really just stuck with me. Yeah, just
stuck with you. Mm-hmm. For me, it was when they go down in the dungeons first, and they're through the trapdoor. Mm-hmm. Because there's this moment where they get trapped in the devil's snare, mm-hmm. which was a devil word to say because couldn't say that then.
Devil's snare.
They get stuck in the devil's snare, and of course Hermione knows what it is, and she's trying to remember what it likes and doesn't so that she can kill it. Mm-hmm. And she's telling them not to struggle because the more they struggle, the more it'll tighten. Mm-hmm. Like it'll tighten more quickly. And she says how she remembers it likes damp, dark places. So Harry says, light a fire. Mm-hmm. To which Hermione says, yes, of course, but there's no wood. And then Ron's like, have you gone mad? Are you a witch or not? Like, that really stood out to me because she does this really, like, she's muggle born, so she does this really human muggle moment like, where it's a crisis and she's like, okay, I need things to light a fire. Let me find things to light a fire. And she doesn't think to use magic instantly because that's not how she was raised. She goes to instinct right away.
That's true. And I mean, she knows how to light a fire with her wand. And we saw it earlier in the book when she lit
Quirrell's robe, and she did it so fast.
Yes, exactly. So it is funny, like that part of her history, you know, comes out.
And she'd even gotten to the point where she could like bottle it and recapture it. Like she'd gotten really good with it, and all of a sudden she's like, "There's no wood. I don't know how to light a fire." And then
how do I light this
Ron says, "Lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in a crisis. There's no wood, honestly."
I mean.
That was just a standout moment just because it was so silly and fun, and like I said, it was just such a,
I don't know, like,
down-to-earth thing that you could relate to.
It's so true, but I don't know, I loved everything about this book. But I think the cat reading the newspaper, mostly because of when it happened, I was like, caught my own cat's eye, and was like, you would do that. You would just walk up to a newspaper and stare at it. I know you would. I don't think he's a witch or a wizard or anything like that. I think he just... If it fluttered at all in the wind, he'd be on that in a second.
Which leads us to our favorite moments and our least favorite moments of the book. So, because you mentioned that, my favorite moment is that entire, or well, one of them at least, is that entire opening. Yeah. Where they're slowly introducing everything, and Vernon's like, sort of pushing things to the back of his mind, like he kind of notices they're off, but doesn't really. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so everyday and so mundane, and describes like your own thoughts, seeing things and thinking, gee, maybe that was strange, or maybe it was coincidence, or you know, it captured that so well that I just really enjoyed that.
My favorite part of the book, I really enjoyed the Sorting Hat. I like the Sorting Hat. I like that whole chapter. And that whole conversation he has with the Sorting Hat about how he's anything but Slytherin, and how Ron is like, you know, he needs to be in Gryffindor because everyone in his family is in Gryffindor, but that whole experience of like having to go up and brand new school, you're a new student, you don't know anybody. I've done that a couple times. I've moved a couple times. And I cannot imagine being called up in front of the entire school and have to have this, like, this moment that's going to define your whole future.
I mean, public speaking gives me a rash.
Yeah. So, I mean, that whole, that was one of my favorite moments. Terrifying to think about, but I just really felt for Harry and all the first years, really, because I just felt like this is such a defining moment. You have to do it in front of everybody, and you're 11.
It's your first time there, and you don't know anyone.
You don't know anybody. The whole way it's described, they don't seem nervous about that fact. It's more about which house they're going to have to go to. Yeah. Yeah. So I just liked that, the way that was described. So, least favorite moment. When Ron... Oh, no. I was like... Least favorite moments is not from this book. So, now I have to think of another one. I'm like, what's when Ron did
Getting it confused with
not this one.
future things we've read.
That's right. Wait, is it in this one? The vomiting of the slugs?
No.
No.
Spoiler alert.
Whoops. I'm like, is it in this one? Now I have to think about my least favorite one in this book is. I am not one for dark and scary places. I understand that the adventure that went on into the forest was necessary. However, I did not feel, for me, that, I don't know if it needed to be as long as it was. I guess there was some build up there. For me, it felt lacking. Like it could have been richer. And I guess it's because it was...
We're getting very close to the end at that point. And
Yeah.
it does give us very important information and introduce us to the centaurs, which will be more important later.
And I think the thing is that they went in there at night, and so you don't get to see a whole lot. So you're just walking through forest, and I just expected them to go into this forbidden forest, and there would be all sorts of... I mean, there's unicorns in there, and
Yeah.
centaurs. I just expected it to be more magical.
Yeah.
Now, not that it wasn't a great chapter, but I just felt like...
You felt like there could have been more richness to the way it was developed.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's coming so late in the series that it did kind of feel like she was trying to get us the facts we needed through that journey part of it, more so than taking her time with it like we did at the beginning of the book.
Like there's definitely, I mean, it just feels like a regular forest with unicorns. So why are the unicorns there and not somewhere else? Like what makes that such a...
Yeah, what makes the forest so special?
Well, maybe there's unicorns, everywhere, but there's not centaurs everywhere. Well, maybe there are. I don't know. Maybe there's some living in the backyard.
I doubt it.
There could be some there. I don't know. I just spent a lot of time in your backyard. So I just felt like for me that whole scene just felt like they could have had more for me.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. My least favorite thing was probably the Hogwarts anthem. Oh my god.
The Hogwarts anthem.
Oh my god. Hoggy Hoggy Hogwarts is like half the song. And like no, it was so, like even as a kid I thought that part was dumb. It's like, why is this the school song?
I legitimately think I just blanked that out of my mind.
Right? Because it's so silly. It's too silly.
But is that a British thing? Like, do schools have anthems and songs, like theme songs? Like, my school growing up did not have...
Well, it's kind of like an alma mater thing, like a chant that you do.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I've seen in other things, not necessarily for schools.
It's true.
But, like, you'll see them sometimes at sporting events. There's things that everybody says, right?
That's true.
It's just, it was too ridiculous. I just couldn't with it. Even... Like I said, even as a kid, I didn't like that part of it, and reading it now as an adult, it hits me even worse.
Hoggy Hoggy Hogwarts. I've forgotten all about that.
It just was not an appealing thing. I could have done without it entirely.
It hasn't been that long since I read this book, and I'm like, I don't need to read that. I'm done. So I agree. Because I think I just skipped over it when I reread. I'm like, oh, that's the beginning of that next paragraph.
Yeah, it was just ludicrous.
This is designed for children.
But like, no. It was
but no.
Obviously designed for children in that way that's like, even children find it aggravating.
Do you think it's kind of like... J.R.R. Tolkien, he wrote a lot of little songs and stuff like that in his books.
It's like the only one she does in this, and I'm glad. Let's be real. This was not a thing that worked out.
That's true. But J.R.R. Tolkien, Tolkien, I think that they really enrich the books. I mean,
it was definitely written with that
intention.
Yeah, I feel like that was a little bit of an influence, but I feel like it was, the way the world was set up was definitely different.
Oh, for sure.
And, I mean, it is in that genre, so I guess it's hard to, like, fully get away from that comparison.
That's sing-song. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just, I was just thinking it was like a school thing.
I mean, they do it at the introductory feast, so everybody knows the song, but still, it's not like it ever comes up again, ever.
Ever, thank God.
Which will bring us to the different editions we looked at. So we looked at a few different editions for this.
Yes. So I read the illustrated version, as well as listened to the audio version, the audio book, because it was a great thing that I could do on my way to work, on my lunch breaks. This is a hefty book to bring back and forth.
And that's your only copy of the book right now, because
Right
your
now.
other copy is in storage.
I have the full set somewhere in storage. I moved a little while ago, and by storage I mean in a closet under a bunch of other boxes somewhere. But I am missing things, and they're probably behind a Christmas tree and some Halloween decorations. And I'm hoping to find them when I pull all those things out with the upcoming season. Yeah, but audiobook and the illustrated version for me. And
I read, well, I also read the illustrated version, but my main one, I read this one first, which was the original published version. And I also read the new 20th anniversary edition for my house, which was Hufflepuff House.
Hufflepuff House, yeah.
So this experience was pretty much like I remembered it. It even had the little typo that always bothered me in the list of supplies where it says to bring a wand twice, which is now missing from this version.
Thank goodness.
But the neat thing about the house editions is it has some extra facts pertaining specifically to the house.
Really?
And it gives you some extra information about the house ghosts and what their aspirations were. So whatever it is specific to your house, it'll tell you about. All of the editions of these, regardless of house, have a quiz at the back as well.
Really?
So there's a little tiny, like, how much do you know about this book quiz for kind of thing for after you read it, which is kind of neat and interesting. It's really great to get some extra facts about, like, Hufflepuff House and the Fat Friar and that kind of stuff. So each edition, like Ravenclaw and Gryffindor and Slytherin all have things pertaining to that house in here.
Wow, I might have actually bought the book. May still buy the book.
They're still available.
They're still available. For Gryffindor. Because who doesn't want to know more about Nearly Headless Nick?
Right? I'm very curious about his motivations.
Right? He so wants to be part of the Headless Hunt.
Yeah.
Poor Nick.
We'll get into that more in the second upcoming book.
We will, yeah. So the illustrated version, the great thing about the illustrated version is while it is a hefty read to if you were commuting, it would be the best book I think to read with children. Probably, you know, if you're going to be reading to your kids Harry Potter, or even young readers, I think.
Yeah, to pick up on their own.
Really, for sure.
It's very beautiful overall.
I mean, everything is written a little bit bigger. There's illustrations on, I would say, every second or third page.
Yeah, and when it's not full page illustrations, there's little like spot illustrations.
Like in the corner or something like that. But it really adds a richness to the book, and it gives you, I think, a different view on Harry Potter than what the movies would be visually. I felt like a lot of the illustrations in the book kind of went more along with what I picture when I was reading the book. I found it easier to forget about some of the images you see in the films because the images that are in the book kind of more align with the book versions.
Yeah, the way the characters are described are obviously different. I mean, they're hiring actors, they're not going to look exactly the same. So a lot of the things you picture, because of the way they're described, are shown really well in his illustrations. So Jim Kay, of course, is the illustrator.
Yes, yeah.
And another thing about his work is like some images are more tight and some are more loose. Everything is very suits the atmosphere of that scene very well.
I was just going to say,
he
very
changes,
atmospheric.
The style a little bit based on what is going, like what text is paired with that illustration. And yeah, he's very good at capturing different types of atmospheres and like really setting those scenes for you.
You know what, I totally agree, because that's what I was thinking was atmospheric. Like when you look at some of the scenery pieces, they're so especially some of the ones there at the beginning where he's out on the ocean, there just seems to be so much static, I guess, from like the wind and the fog and things like that, that they're not tight, like you said. They're kind of more loosely drawn.
Yeah.
And then you get to some places like Diagon Alley, and the intricate little details that are in there, they're just so, everything is just so perfect. And you know, even with the same thing with the cover art for this one, there's little tiny details, but then he uses the fog to just create this huge, or not the fog, the steam, I guess, from the engine to just create this like huge like fog that kind of swirls around everybody. And I felt it really
it really sets that uncertainty of like starting to go to school for the first time and having to go through, you know, that mysterious gateway and wondering if you're going to make it, and everybody is like nerves because they're going to school, and the steam and the way like things are sort of detailed but then also sort of obscured because of it, it really fits that tone.
Just really, he just picked up so much. Like there's characters like Harry who's standing there and he is so perfectly visible, and then other characters are just a blur.
Yeah. They're
like barely drawn in, almost just to create that sense of movement. He's standing there stationary, kind of in awe, and everybody is moving around him. And I feel like Jim Kay really captured that really well.
Definitely.
Right. So my top 3 illustrations in this book is really hard because they're all really great.
Yeah, we had to limit it somehow, so we just sort of thought, top 3.
top 3. I'm going to start with, it's Hagrid's little owl, and he just looks so ruffled and just so...
It looks like Hagrid's been keeping him in his pocket, let's be real.
I'm pretty sure Hagrid has been keeping him in his pocket.
He's at least been keeping the mice there.
So, he just looks so ruffled and so, like, sleepy, and one of his little ears are half up, and he literally did pull him from a pocket. From yet another pocket inside the overcoat, he pulled an owl. And he just looks like it. He just looks like he's been stuffed inside a pocket, and he's just like, oh, daylight, blink, blink. And I just thought it was really well drawn. I love the Diagon Alley drawing. There is so much to see in this little tiny drawing.
It's so detailed.
It's so detailed. And so, as you said, just like the drawing is so tight, there's umbrellas, there's little, you know, animals just all over the place. And everything is just in there to see.
It's sort of like that feeling of like when Harry's walking around mesmerized and he's like overwhelmed by just how much there is. That's what this illustration is. It's
totally what this illustration does. And like there's one there where that has all of these Muggle like teapots and chairs, and they might not be Muggle teapots and chairs and stuff like that, but they're just piled up unnaturally in front of the building, and it almost looks like, look at all the stuff we have. Instead of coming inside, you can just see it on the outside. And I just really liked it. There was just so much to see in this little drawing. My other favorite drawing is also a great drawing.
There's a lot of really great things
There's
in
a
here.
lot of really great drawings in here. I really loved this drawing of Snape. Like this drawing of Snape.
That's a very good drawing, yeah.
They're in front of all the jars. Everything just looks so detailed in the way the light shines off it. Like you really get that 3-dimensional, and the unearthly glow that kind of comes up from behind to light everything. I just thought it was so well done, and I don't know. There's probably more. There's more than 3 of my favorites.
Oh, definitely. But we had to narrow it
It's
down.
hard because there's so many good ones.
And we had a lot of mutual favorites because that's one of my
We did.
favorites too.
Yeah.
I really liked this particular boat scene
Yeah.
with Vernon, like rowing towards the little tiny shack, because he just looks so smug.
He looks so smug and happy. Like
It's right when he thinks he's got everything figured out. They're not gonna reach him now. Like, and just
Never
the
gonna find him
expression is so amazing, and the way like parts of it are tight, like the expression around his face is very tightly drawn, and his hands are very rugged looking and really nice, and then everything else is sort of like loose and watercolor, and the watercolor is splashed in a way that looks like sea spray coming up around his face.
Yeah.
It's so good.
just such a great drawing.
And I'll let you go to your other favorite one, because since we're talking about boat scenes.
Since we're talking about boat scenes, I loved this one. This drawing here with Hagrid and his little tiny umbrella and Harry reaching for those birds. Like, and just the way the weight of the boat is sitting back with Hagrid and his scarf kind of flowing behind. I thought it was such a great drawing. And when you picture Hagrid with the umbrella, you don't think
it's a Muggle umbrella.
You know it's a Muggle umbrella, but in the same time, I thought of it as being a size for Hagrid.
Which is impossible.
Which is impossible. But it never occurred to me until I saw this drawing. That's a Muggle umbrella. So of course, it's just going to be this
thing.
tiny
and it looks
little,
even smaller next to him.
tiny
He's just
parasol.
this little tiny pink thing.
And it's so great because like all of the birds and everything are so tight, and then you look at the water and it's just like this flow of just blues and greens, and I just like that one. I like them all.
Well, we all like them all, but one of my
this
other
one.
favorite drawings was this one, because this is one of the looser drawings in the thing.
For sure.
There's a little bit of extra detail in the shack, but the rest of it is just so loose. So this is the shack that Vernon takes them to hide from all the letters. And it's such a sweeping atmosphere, and he's really captured that sense of isolation and foreboding with like how he's let the watercolor run for the sky.
Oh yeah, and the way the
and
colors
the waves are here, and it's very monochromatic, and it feels like they've literally gone to somewhere at the end of the world.
Yeah, that just like that little pop of yellow for the glow.
Yeah, just for the light that's in there from the fireplace.
Yeah, and the way he made the watercolor bleed in the sky.
It's so simple, and yet it's so effective. Like the birds are detailed, and the shack is detailed enough that it gives you the idea that all the rest of this looseness just coming in on it, and like almost like it's going to erode into the sea.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's great.
And another one I'm going to mention was also a mutual favorite of ours, but one of us had to mention it. It's actually kind of 2 images, but
I
whatever.
love them all.
Yeah, this one's technically 2 images, but it's fine. It's the imagery of the ghosts.
Oh, they're like the Technicolor dream ghosts.
They're very loose. They're detailed but like loosely painted at the same time. It's not tight lines.
Yeah, and they're so vibrant with their colors, that transparency that's created.
And on the black, and it just feels very ethereal. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Just like, it really looks like they're light. Like, you know how some people take photos with like the slow shutter speed while someone runs around you with a sparkler? That's what these paintings feel like. They feel like you're just watching this thing that's lit up just create this trail behind them.
And like the same thing with this. This is an up close of Nearly Headless Nick, so that relates to the ghosts because he's done in the same way. And I'm not exactly sure. I think this is a composite of both like digital and traditional stuff, sort of put together, from the looks of this one. But like it's so cool.
It's such and just the colors that he uses, they're so bright and just so.
And like you can still see blood coming out of his
Just
neck, and even that looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It really does. Like, it just adds this whole spirit and life to it.
All of the drawings on there, and I liked how on some of the pages he just had these like flecks of like watercolor droplets as well.
Yeah.
So the illustrated books, for sure, probably my favorite version to read. I do enjoy the audiobooks just because it's fun to listen to them. For sure, this was my favorite version.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm going to agree. I mean, I'm very nostalgic about the original. And the first time I opened that book and saw the words on the page and all that stuff, I'm always going to have a certain strange tactile connection to it.
Of course, yeah.
But
it's part of your childhood.
The illustrated one just, like, it's so complimentary and enriches the story so much. J.K. Rowling did classics. So she's got a really deep, rich background in, like, mythology and different types of, like, historic religions and that kind of thing. And she brought a lot of that to the table in this book.
Oh, for sure.
One of the main ones, and one of the first things they mention is Daedalus Diggle as a name. Now, Daedalus is the Daedalus of Daedalus and Icarus. He's the Daedalus that built the maze for the Minotaur. And they mention him in the first chapter just casually as a throw aside, and yet by the end of the book we're in a very labyrinth-like trap, and it's very reminiscent of Daedalus and Icarus, and so she's kind of hinting at that in the first chapter right away at the beginning. This is how your book's going to end, in just like a throwaway, here's a famous wizard name. And I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. That is cool.
Fluffy. It's the three-headed dog. It's very much like Cerberus, which is from Hercules, and that was one of Hercules' many trials. And of course, when they go through the trapdoor, they have to go through a number of trials. So that as well is a little bit of a sort of a hint. Yeah. One super cool one that's not mythology is Nicholas Flamel. He's the main guy. He's the one who makes the stone. He was actually a real alchemist.
I knew that.
Yeah. He was a historic figure. Back when, like, science and philosophy and everything were all mixed together, and you had alchemy where you were trying to, because they didn't understand substances as well, they were trying to see if you could turn them into other substances and manipulate them. And there was a lot of obsession with turning things into gold, or in making what they thought could be the substance of life, or the elixir, Philosopher's Stone, right? And that was really neat that she used the actual
alchemist.
Yeah,
that is cool.
As a wizard, which is kind of like brings it into our world a little more.
Kind of blends it in there, but I mean that's what Harry Potter is. It's a mishmash of the two worlds coming together.
One of the coolest ones I learned about was Professor Quirrell, because this I didn't know. I was reading a little bit about him on Pottermore, and she said, so his full name is Quirrell Quirrell, and she said it came from a Roman god. So I looked up the Roman god. There's not much known about him. He's from very early on in Roman mythology, so he's not used a lot. He's distinctly Roman and not Greek, so he was basically associated with war and tragedy. His name, Quirrell, is derived from, I've got it written here, a Sabine word, quirris, which means spear. So that's probably to do with the association with war. So that kind of hints at sort of Quirrell's nature a little bit.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would think that if you looked a little further into, you said Roman god, correct?
Yeah.
So would he have been possibly a buddy of, would he have gone by Ares or Mars by the Roman standard?
I'm not sure. I think it would have been Mars by the Roman standard, because Ares was a Greek god.
Yes.
And so the Romans tried to have their own distinct gods that had nothing to do with Greek. And one of those gods was Janus. And it's often thought that Quirrell is an epithet for Janus. And Janus is specifically it's the Roman god of duality. So basically two sides of things. He's also the god of like beginnings, gates and doorways, transitions, and he's depicted as actually having two faces, one on the front and one on the back, one that looks to the future and one that looks to the past. So a lot of these things like really told you who Quirrell was going to be without you really like knowing it, unless you sort of like
unless you're a follower of Greek and Roman history. Now I have to start thinking about this in a whole new setting.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that there was some Greek and Roman elements in there. Obviously, Three-Headed Dog, Cerberus, and a little bit later in the series, there's a certain labyrinth that they have to go through. It's gonna bring a whole new
There's a lot
level
of classic things. There's even more actually in here. These are the ones I picked up on myself. But like there are a lot more references in here that I wasn't aware of. There's a YouTuber, Jean Bookish Thoughts. I'm going to recommend it because she's a classics major. And she does a video. She's going to do each of the Harry Potter books and the different classics references. And she's got one out now that I'm going to link to in the description for the Philosopher's Stone.
I'd watch that.
And it's really good. It's got a lot of extra things that had to do with Greek and Roman mythology that I didn't know had to do with it. So I just thought that was like just neat little aside stuff.
That is really cool. I didn't know that. You're learning something new every day.
Yay!
Yeah. So Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. My overall impression is that it's a great book. I love it. I think everybody should read it. Go right now to your local bookstore. It's so good, and as we've demonstrated, you just keep learning things and looking at things differently from when you did when you were younger, and it's a really rich world. And it's true, though, reading it as an adult is a totally different experience than reading it as a child, or reading it as, for me, a young adult, because I was in high school when I read these books, I think. Possibly, yes. I was definitely in high school. The way your mind thinks about things as an adult is totally different than the way your mind thinks about things. Like, I pick up more on the overall social situation that Harry finds himself in, more as an adult, and probably a little bit more empathetic towards certain characters in the book, such as Neville, who definitely,
I always felt bad for Neville, and I always felt like he should have been more involved. But like, man, rereading this as an adult, I really feel so deep for Neville. I really do. Another difference I noticed actually reading it as an adult is, as a kid, I always had the impression that when they were talking about Dudley Dursley, anytime they were like mocking his size, it always seemed to me like it was always associated with his greed, which I know is not a great metaphor there. It's a very old metaphor that's not used as often now, where like, larger people are also greedy people and things like that. That's not really an accepted thing now. That was like, it was very prevalent though in media in the 90s especially.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Kind of associated with them mocking him because of his greed and not because of his size. But they do mock him a lot more for his size and weight than I remembered, and I kind of feel bad for him.
It's true. It's a totally different experience. You take more away from it. Every time I read these books, I take something different away from them. I just feel like they're timeless in a way like that. Like, they're never going to grow old for me. Like, this is not a book just for children.
No, you can keep diving back into it, and I think that's something successful about children's books, because children of many different levels of learning wherever they are and can pick it up, which means also an adult can pick it up. And you can pick it up and bring your own experiences to it, and you can see more things in it, and it does such a good job of that.
So I agree. I think that these books, I mean, the 20th anniversary just occurred. They're still going strong. I would think that they're probably still one of the best children's. I don't even like to use the word children's because I don't feel like they're for children. I feel like they're one of the best-selling book series that probably in the last 20 years, for sure. When they took off in the last 12, they're written in such a way that I feel like they're not going to age. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not set in a certain time period.
Of timelessness to them.
Yeah.
They don't have things like technology-wise that date them.
Exactly. There's no cell phones in there.
the wizarding world has as much ancient technology as it does modern technology.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So join us next time when we actually will start the Chamber of Secrets. And when we get to the Chamber of Secrets, we get to talk about some of our favorite things like foreshadowing, because this first book had so much foreshadowing.
There was so much going
but
on.
we can't talk about it yet.
No.
And I'm so excited to start getting into it.
I know. There's so much happening in this whole series that I'm excited to move on so that we can finally start talking about it. The great introduction. Let's get into the meat.
This is the foundation. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, we solemnly swear that we're up to no good. Should we do that again?
Well, I missed that, so ready?
We solemnly swear we're up to no good. My alarm went off this morning and I was like, why is your alarm going off? It's Saturday. And I was like, stop.
And it's like, oh right, I told someone.
And then like half an hour later I was like, Mother, you have somewhere to be.